Here we go, Luke. It's a big one. This probably is our most controversial topic yet.
By a lot.
Yeah. We're going to touch on kind of our opinions and a lot of facts and a lot of just, social pressure and kind of social norms around the vaccine.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple weeks that I've been like, we should talk about this, and then backed out because I'm like, we shouldn't talk about this. And eventually, finally, I just, like, even before we started this, it's just like, man, it's like stressful to talk about it. And it shouldn't. We should be able to feel like we can talk about stuff, like literally just talk about it. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling anybody to do anything, and we'll get into all that. Phil will talk about that, but like, it's been stressful to even think about having this podcast, which is crazy to me.
It is sad. No, it is. And we will touch on how it shouldn't be sad. I'll definitely talk about that. But we want to start with a disclaimer here because this could very well easily get taken off of YouTube and other platforms, which is sad because those are really the kind of the public sphere now. That's how people communicate. It's sad that, we can't talk about our own opinions and facts on platforms that have literally billions of users. Regardless, we're not doctors. We're only going to be using statistics and facts that we have, found. They're all going to be legit statistics done with real studies and everything, and that's kind of where we're going to go, as well as our own opinions. These all are our own opinions when we are giving opinions, and we stand by them, and we're not afraid to answer questions. If you guys really want to rip into us or tell us your opinion, go ahead. These are our opinions, and let's get started here. Luke, are you vaccinated?
I am not. Are you, Phil?
I am not. Why are you not vaccinated, Luke?
Honestly, to me, I feel like a lot of people have talked about, it's not political, it's not political, it's not political. Well, it's very political. And so,
sadly,
I have nothing against the vaccine. I have nothing against people who get the vaccine. If you feel like you want the vaccine, go get the vaccine. We should also disclaim that we are not anti-vaccination here. If you feel
100%.
like you need the vaccine for your safety, for your family's safety, go get it. I think the biggest reason that I would say I'm not vaccinated is I hate feeling like I'm forced to do things by like people that I love and trust, let alone the U.S. government. So when I feel like I'm pressured to do this, and I feel like, some people have to stand up and be like, hey, this is not right. This should be a freedom. And just kind of like push back against that. And like I said, people like you and me got to do that because we're 24, we're healthy. Like the vaccine is not needed for people like us.
Yep.
And so I just feel like it's kind of like my duty to freedom to be like, hey, no, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in kind of the same boat. I've got a few reasons. I am not anti-vax, just like you. I, in fact, very much support vaccinations for things that are proven. All the major vaccinations that we get, and we'll touch on why those are way more important than the COVID vaccine in terms of statistics and death counts and the type of symptoms you get, etc. Again, we can go into all these topics for hours, but another main reason why I'm not vaccinated is because I had the virus. I had the virus back in November, so that would have been almost 8-9 months ago. And I'm still experiencing symptoms from it. So a lot of my choice in life, and especially surrounding the COVID vaccine and the passports and all that stuff that we will touch on, is my hatred for hypocrisy. And the major reason that I really don't feel comfortable with the vaccine is because of the hypocrisy that I have seen through our government, through the media, through certain political parties, through certain political actors who say they may be medical professionals, whatever. They all have an agenda. And I saw back in February of 2020, this virus started blowing up in China and Italy and some European countries, and it slowly started making its way here. And I did a lot of research and, communicated with a lot of people like my brother and a few other people who love doing research and really looking into these things. And I found that there happened to be this virology lab in Wuhan, China, which is where they're saying this virus originated. And they still are. And for the longest time, almost an entire year, we were told that there's no way by both the WHO, the CDC, and all of the mainstream media, which is, don't even get me started, that is my biggest hatred on this planet, is how evil and how terrible the mainstream media has become. All of those institutions talked about how there's no way this came from this specific lab in China. There's no way. It's natural. It came from, a bat pooping near a pig and there's a wet market, et cetera, et cetera. There was an excuse after an excuse, and the story changed. And then once evidence finally came out that this is kind of looking like this probably came from that lab, just like that, every single one of these institutions that I literally knew were bull crapping the entire time changed their tune. And as if half the nation wouldn't notice, which they did. And so me still experiencing the fact that I still don't have sense of taste and smell is the main reason why I'm not comfortable getting the vaccination, because the same institutions that are pushing me towards getting the vaccination, which in my opinion is very creepy, they're giving incentives and raffle tickets and doing these raffles for thousands of dollars to get a vaccine. Is that not creepy?
Doesn't make sense.
It's weird. It's Orwellian. It's odd. And those same institutions a year ago told me, oh no, there's no way this wasn't natural. There's no way. So what makes me want to trust them now? That's why I'm not going to get vaccinated. There's no way.
I would say that definitely plays a role for me too. Like, just lack of trust in the people in power is a huge thing that we deal with a lot of different things. Obviously, we're pretty hands-off government. We really don't want them to touch our stuff, things like that. And that kind of goes with this too. Like, why am I being... And this isn't a thing yet, and it may never be a thing, but it's being pushed very heavily to where it's like, it feels like the government at some point is going to force you to take the COVID vaccine, or you're going to not be able to do this or this.
Not live a normal life.
Yeah, and so to me that doesn't make any sense for this virus. And even other vaccines are not forced upon you like this heavily. Like
and this quickly.
Yeah, and it's not FDA approved yet. It probably will be within the next, I don't know, maybe never. Maybe they're just playing us and it's never going to get there. But
I've seen estimates of 2 years from now.
But the thing is that all other vaccines went through the testing period. They went through FDA approved stuff, and yeah, it's approved for emergency use. But I'm not in emergency use. I'm 25 years old. If I get coronavirus, I'm going to be fine. In 99.9999999% of cases, I'm going to probably be symptomless, because that's not what the number says. But I'm telling you, people my age aren't going to the doctor. 100%. So there's going to be a lot of
especially those of you your age that are healthy.
Yeah, symptomless.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot less testing for people that literally don't have symptoms. Why would I go to the doctor and get tested? Unless I'm forced to because of some other thing, which happened a lot last year. But that's a different point.
Yeah. No, I agree. Touching on that, though, about the healthiness side of things, is, again, we are in that demographic that has the least amount of symptoms. And I'm going to touch on that here pretty quickly. For me, for instance, when I had COVID, I had to leave work, and I took my time off and did the protocol, got tested, whatever. The symptoms I experienced were less, not even half as bad as the average flu or cold that I have gotten my entire life. And I'm not kidding. That's my own personal experience. I know other people have had it worse, but as a healthy 24, 23-year-old guy, that is what I experienced. And when I saw people like my brother, who's 26, who got the vaccine, and he's very healthy, and in that age group that doesn't really need the vaccine, he had to get it for work. He had way more misery. He was going through way more symptoms, and it was a shorter period of time. It was like 2 days, but he was going through way more right after he got that second dose of the vaccine, and he was bedridden. He couldn't even get out of bed. So why would I want to go take a vaccine when I literally already have some antibodies in my body, and my body knows how to fight it off, and the symptoms I had when I had the real virus, because my body was young and healthy, fought it off better than the mRNA vaccine that people are getting.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that a big part of it is just legitimate question, just my opinion, not coming at people. I'm sure there are extreme cases. Do you know anybody our age that has had more symptoms than like common flu symptoms when they've had corona?
No, I really don't. Not even those that I know who are unhealthy that I knew got it.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know anyone that was hospitalized. Our age,
yeah, of course. Obviously, there's been a lot of cases, and if you are elderly, this is a very serious disease, and you should be, if you can get vaccinated, you should be vaccinated in 5 seconds. That's not our point.
Yeah.
But for people in the demographics where it doesn't affect you, and it's not gonna oh, if I get corona, I might lose my smell or I might have flu-like symptoms for 2 or 3 days. Okay, you can go get the vaccine if you don't want to deal with that, but why do I have to? That doesn't make sense to me.
No, I agree. And I'll touch on the why would I have to, because that's what, again, pisses us both off. And I know you got to talk about it too. But it's coming. And mark my words, it is coming. And unless people push back, unless people show that, listen, even if you're pro-vaccine, which across the board, I am. Maybe not this vaccine, not yet, because it's not proven and because there's a lot of red flags with it. But across the board, I am pro-vaccine. And the people that are also pro-vaccine, even pro-COVID vaccine, need to show that they are supportive of the fact that people need that freedom of choice. And, a lot of people, even on the left, people that are not like us, love the freedom of choice. And they talk about it with abortion and stuff like that. And that's an entire other argument we can get into, because I think that's a completely different choice, and that shouldn't...
Those comparisons shouldn't be made by either side, and they're made by both, and it's really annoying.
I agree. But what I'm saying is, if you can support that type of choice, which in my opinion is way more drastic and in my opinion wrong, then you should not be pushing so hard against the choice of someone not wanting to put a vaccine in their body, a vaccine that's not proven, a vaccine that hasn't gone through the rigorous testing that the other vaccines that we all have grown up and taken have been tested for 50 plus years. And it's frustrating when you see these people who were so anti-vax when Trump did Operation Warp Speed, and he was touting it in the media when he was still president. All of them, Kamala, Biden, all of them said, no, I'm going to be skeptical if a vaccine comes out under the Trump administration. And then all of a sudden, okay, it came out and they started all getting it, but being real quiet, even though they said literally in debates, Kamala in debates said she would be skeptical of a vaccine that came out under Trump. Yet now it shows again the hypocrisy of them flip-flopping, and now it is the mega left who is pushing this so hard and cramming it down people's throats. It's like, where's the line that you guys stand? How does anyone trust you or believe you when you talk about these things when you flip-flop every other day? It's nonsense.
I think that's definitely, and I wouldn't just say left either. I would say that's definitely a quality of politicians these days, is to where it's like, hey, I feel like my constituents want this, so I'm going to say this. And the next day, there's no honor. There's no they don't make their own decisions. It's just like, I think this is what the people want to hear today, so I'm going to say this. Or I'm trying to, what they're doing in their head is, what gets me the most power? What gets me to my next step of being elected to the next spot? And they just do the things that they think they have to do. And they also push agendas. All of them do. And like I said, we're not pushing left or right. We're just saying, I think all politicians have an agenda, regardless of what it is. And they're all trying to push people to that spot. Mm-hmm. I think some people have better agendas than others, and that's why I support them. But I'm not sitting here and being like, hey, people on the right, they're perfect. They're just doing everything they're doing for their constituents. I don't believe that either. I think that they have a reason that they're doing what they're doing. But just all this stuff with the vaccine, you're right. Like the fact that you could say one day, I'm not going to take that. That's Trump's vaccine. And then, also the other point of that is 2 months later, they're like, look what Biden did with this vaccine. Mm-hmm. Look at all the amazing things that Biden did with it. That vaccine was made when Trump was president. Yep.
It's straight hypocrisy. Another thing that's kind of hypocritical, and again, this is straight facts. There are certain demographics that those who love pushing the vaccine say they care about. And in a lot of ways, I feel like they really don't. All they do is push a narrative and push division and push fear, like the media, to make sure that they keep people under their control. When people are scared, they fall in line. You look at something like, 38% of the black community is vaccinated, and it's the lowest population or lowest demographic in the U.S. that's vaccinated. And you see the politicians who go out and they support all these movements and stuff like that, Black Lives Matter, etc. And they go out and they say that they care about these things, and then they don't even bring that stuff up. They don't ever try to push it in those communities or do anything like that, and it shows the hypocrisy behind it. I hate the fact that the media, etc., tries to push the narrative that if you take the vaccine, or if you're avoiding taking the vaccine, you're a bigot, conservative, racist Republican, right? That is the narrative. A majority of black people in the U.S. don't vote Republican, and a majority of them you can't consider racist because apparently they can't be racist. And what's sad about it is the black community and the right that doesn't trust the government at this point are two sides of the exact same coin. And this is something that I've kind of gathered over the last few weeks and I've heard people talk about and saying, like, it's actually kind of true. There's people on the right, like us, who are, these America First people, don't come into my life, government. Then you have the black community, who's the same way. They have been told by their own community and by the people that they surround themselves to not trust the government for good reason for hundreds of years. Let's be honest, since the inception of them coming to America to, the 60s, when civil rights movement happened and they finally got the freedoms they deserved and needed and healed this nation, they had no reason to trust the U.S. government in any way. And you look at the people now who are being told are evil and racist and killing grandma and etc. because we won't get vaccinated. It's two sides of the same coin. We're the two groups that don't trust what the media and what the government is telling you, because we have, they have had the history, the black community have had the history of not trusting these institutions. And just recently we have, because it has been so turned over on its head that we can't. And so, again, it's the hypocrisy and the divisiveness of the media that puts those two groups together and against each other instead of putting them together, because they know that if we were put together, we would be the strongest force across the board. And I hate that I have to say that, and judge me for all you want, but really people like us who don't trust this system that we're thrown into, it's the same thing as the black community. And look at the numbers. Look at the vaccination rates.
Yeah, and just to point out for Phil's sake, so we don't just act like we're throwing out random stuff here, based off the KFF, which is the Kaiser Family Foundation, as of August 2nd, 2021, 49% of white people were vaccinated. The second highest ethnic group, Asian, was the highest at 66. Blacks were the lowest at 38, and Hispanics at 43.
So I was right, 38%.
Yeah. So basically, all you people that say, I have literally been called racist for not taking the vaccine, which makes zero sense to me. It's on Twitter, so does that even really count? Probably not.
No.
But, I understand the argument where you're coming from, which we'll get into on why you're wrong. If you're coming from, you need to help people. Because at least, on some level, that makes sense to me. Okay, you think that the vaccine is made to stop the spread of a virus. Mm-hmm. Okay, that logically could make sense. I don't understand how it makes me racist. I don't get that. And so, I guess we'll kind of just dive into that right now. The idea of a vaccine, the point of a vaccine, is not to stop the spread entirely by the person that's in. Because as you see now, there's stats coming out where people that have the vaccine are still spreading the vaccine. So me getting the vaccine doesn't affect how I transmit it from me to you or from me to somebody else. It only affects how the vaccine affects me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not saving my grandma by getting the vaccine. In some studies it said that I'm actually hurting grandma by getting the vaccine. But that's not entirely proven, so that's just speculation. I'm not acting like I know that for a fact. But I do know that either way, regardless, I can still transmit that disease. So it's not hurting grandma by me not getting this. It's literally just, if I get COVID, my symptoms could be worse. And I'm taking that risk because I feel like I'm in a health demographic where I don't care. Literally, I don't get the flu vaccine every year, and COVID is not the flu. It's not much worse than the flu, but it's not the flu. For my age, it's probably, literally, like you said, I'd probably rather get COVID than the flu. My symptoms would probably be more mild.
Oh, no, literally, and people under 25, you are less likely to die from COVID than you are the flu. Less likely. And that is with flu vaccines been out for decades. And even for kids younger, that number gets even wider. You are literally, as a kid in grade school, you are more likely to get struck by lightning than to die by COVID.
But kids in schools need to wear masks, right? It's important.
Oh, man. You really want to get into that now?
We can get into that. What I feel like is teachers, if they feel in danger, they should be vaccinated. And
they can wear their mask? The mask is supposed to protect you, correct? That's what they say.
The mask is supposed to stop the spread. No, it's supposed to protect others. You're being selfless by wearing your mask. So, but if you're vaccinated, then you're protected from the disease, and you can still spread it.
As so they say.
That statistically, that's pretty.
I know, symptom wise.
Yeah,
symptom-wise,
and death rate and everything else is a lot lower if you're vaccinated. Which I agree. Vaccines are probably on the up and up.
Yeah.
I don't think they're putting a chip in your arm or anything like that.
No. And no one really believes that. Seriously, no one believes
only
that.
like literally psychotic people that also believe in like aliens attacking the earth in like 5 years or something like that. Most Republicans are not anti-vax in the sense of we think that you're doing something wrong or you're doing something crazy. It's just we want to be able to choose whether we're getting the vaccine or not, and we don't want it to affect our daily lifestyle based on that choice.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I think that schools, if all the teachers that feel uncomfortable will get vaccinated, as far as the science says, everybody's good. And that is trusting the science. And that's another phrase that drives me insane, is people say trust the science and then do zero research on the actual science of it and just expect me to fall in line with what they're saying because they said trust the science. Like that's
because Twitter or CNN said so.
Yeah.
And that's what's sad.
Or Fauci.
Don't even get me started. Speaking of which...
I was segueing you.
Speaking of which, getting into that and the trust the science and the flip-flops, okay? Flip-flop Fauci is the best nickname that's ever been come up. And for him, don't even get me started. His original position, if you looked at, and again, when you do your research, you can find these things out, and you really have to actually not listen to what you're told, whether that be from right-wing media, left-wing media, whatever. I use independent sources, or I do my own research into what these media outlets are talking about. So when Fauci's emails got released by a Freedom of Information Act request, and all the emails from 2020 were released, I went through and combed through myself and looked through. Some of the bigger emails that really struck me were ones that were talking about back in February when there was a mask scare. Remember, there was literally no masks available anywhere and people were starting to get really worried?
Yeah.
What happened was Fauci at that time had literal emails to other Department of Health individuals that he worked with that literally said masks don't do anything. Which, if you really think about it and you use at least half a brain cell, the only thing they could possibly do would be to stop maybe big droplets that can't get through a mask. It is a freaking virus.
Well, to clarify that, what Fauci said was unless they wore, what is it, the K1? What are those? The actual surgical masks. That people,
KN95.
Yeah, unless those masks would. If everybody was wearing a surgical mask, would actually help prevent the spread of the virus. That's what the email said. It didn't say no masks work.
Correct. He was talking about the average mask that people are wearing. He said you just put a cloth mask on or a gaiter or one of the little hospital blue masks that you give out at Walmart. Don't do a damn thing.
The best thing was people walking around with like freaking bandanas and they just pull, like they were over it. They're like, I don't care. And they just take their hoodie or something. And I'm just like,
I've done it.
That's me.
I've done it. But what's sad though is that was not. There were so many instances of things that he flip flop on specifically, as well as the media. And let's be honest, Fauci is an arm of the media, which is an arm of the left. Let's be honest here. And not only that did he flip-flop on, he also flip-flop on his stance on being able to get a vaccine out. He originally said that there's no way we're going to get a vaccine by the beginning of 2021. He said that's absolutely impossible. It's never going to happen. It's just forget about it. He said we're going to be having to fight this for another 2 years, etc. All those things he flip-flop on. And just right following him, because he's the Lord and Savior Dr. Fauci, so did the media. And if people did a little bit of their own research, just 10 minutes, and went and looked at the archives of his actual emails, or even the articles that some of these news organizations literally changed the title or changed actual paragraphs in there. And all they have to do on the bottom of their article is say, this was edited after the fact and just give a date. That's all they have to do. So really, when someone's going through online, they see an article that's just rage bait or just absolute fear-mongering, all they do is see that and they go, oh my God, grandma's going to die, the world's going to end. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, the real truth comes out and they can slowly go in there and edit silently online and you wouldn't know because you already viewed the article. So why would you go back and look at the truth? You wouldn't.
Yeah.
Unless you do your own research and you find these things out for yourself and you don't listen to what some asshole on Twitter says.
I think that that's a big part of this conversation is that a lot of people our age, and this is not everybody, there are some people that are very pro-COVID vaccine that have done their research and they feel the way they do.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people our age have not really dug in and done their research, and they just take off, like you said, what Twitter says. And I think it's even more media. I think it's more social media. I think it's a lot of people that just get these opinions off Twitter are just like, hey, like my buddy retweeted this thing, and I got to go with that because it's popular to be liberal right now. Like that is the cool thing to do, and it drives me.
It's counterculture to be on the right. It's the new counterculture. And
it's not even counterculture. It's just counter social media. Like if you really get out into the real world, like Twitter's got to be at least like 80% liberal. Like just based off whatever it is.
I would say more.
Like the actual population of Twitter, you think it's more?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, obviously based off presidential elections, it's about 50-50. Whichever way you want to go,
Fair.
Voter fraud, whatever. We won't get into that, but it's about 50-50 regardless. And so just branch out. If you are, whatever side you're on, and I know I shouldn't just call out one side because I also know a lot of people on the right that just watch like a Ben Shapiro video for 5 minutes and they're like, well, Ben Shapiro definitely did his research, so he had to get it right.
Exactly.
And Ben Shapiro does do his research. I'm not saying he doesn't. But I'm sure that at some point Ben Shapiro has said something and been like, crap, redone his research and been like, hey, I actually meant to say this. Now, he wouldn't cover it up like you're talking about with other people. But do your own research. Like, don't just get something off Twitter, read an article, headline, and be like, that's what I'm going to go with for the next week. And I'm going to go tell people that. And Twitter has this thing. I haven't noticed it with political stuff, but with sports articles all the time because a lot of times you have to like pay for like The Athletic or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it'll be like, you haven't read this article. Do you want to quote tweet this? And I imagine that a lot of people with political stuff just take a headline, quote tweet it, and like be like, oh, like wear your mask, be safe. And I'm just like, I know you didn't read that. And then I'll click on the stuff that people post sometimes. I'm like, literally the evidence in this doesn't even line up with what you tweeted.
It contradicts it all the time. Yeah, and sometimes that's probably because it had to be re-edited.
Yeah.
Seriously. It's hypocrisy. Let's change gears here a little bit. Talk about our opinions and facts on access to it and kind of what you think about that side of it. And so my opinion, a quick opinion on it is everyone in America across the board has equal access to be able to get the vaccine. Everyone. There's no, you don't
need insurance. It's nothing like that.
Nothing. And everyone can go and get it, at any time, no matter demographic, location, etc. You can go get it. That cannot be an excuse. So my opinion on it is, the people who have not gotten vaccinated are the ones that are choosing not to get vaccinated. They don't want it. The ones that already are vaccinated are probably, a good chunk of them are forced to for work and other things like that, or travel, or etc. And we'll get into that. But it shows how a big of a chunk of the country isn't comfortable with it. And it may be a majority. We don't know yet because we haven't, there's not enough polls out there to even calculate something like that. But the vaccine, again, is supposed to protect you, right?
Yeah.
So you should be able to go out and get the vaccine if you want to be protected and you want your family to be protected, and take them or convince them to go get the vaccine. Then you guys are protected. So who does it hurt? It only,
based off the studies that are all coming out from the CDC, it only affects the people that are unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Because there's pushing how effective this vaccine is. Well, if you're right, then why are you so concerned with people not getting the vaccine? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. So again,
either your vaccine is faulty and you're just, buying off time and putting out numbers that aren't true, which I don't think is happening, or you're trying to control the public into doing something that's not necessary anyways, which I do think is true. I think that's the whole point of this entire thing, because if you can force someone to do something as simple as a vaccine, well, the next step is we can do this, and the next step is we can control them to do this. Mm-hmm. And that's huge conspiracy theory. But
it's
to
really
me,
not.
that's the only way that it makes sense to me, is you push the boundaries of how you control. We started with a mask mandate, which wasn't, that had never happened before, and there have been plenty of pandemics. What was it, 2009? We had masks then at that point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, swine flu.
Yeah. Yep. So if there was any study, any evidence that you could wear masks and cover up a pandemic, why didn't we use it then? Swine flu was way worse than COVID. like that was like a 10 to 15% death rate. So at that point, for 10 to 15%, I think it makes sense. If 1 in 10 people that gets it dies, yeah, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. That's a lot different than 1 in 100,000.
Yeah. Or however much COVID is. And again, it's different ages.
That's a guess.
Yeah.
Off math. I think it'd be 10,000 now that I do the math again.
Yeah. And I agree. Again, it is a control thing. And I don't think you're being a conspiracy theorist. I think that is a pretty widely held opinion. And I think that a lot of people would agree.
Well, at this point, it still would be a conspiracy theory because there isn't hard evidence that they're doing it. So that's why I'm just disclaiming it by saying it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy theory, quote unquote. I would say it's a theory. You don't have evidence to back it up. There's not studies, etc. But about the control thing, and that's something that I have always been against. Is from day one. I was a supporter of 15 days to slow the spread. We were all going to work together. We were all going to make sure that we didn't have hospital overload, because that was the original reason why we locked down, so that the hospitals would not get overrun as soon as it spiked. That was the reason. Undeniable. You can go back and look at every single media outlet before this was politicized. That was what they pushed, and everyone was on the same side. Then it became a month, and then some states started opening up, and thank God we lived in a state, and we were lucky that it opened up and we got to experience somewhat a free life.
I would say here we got really lucky. I would say we have dealt with COVID for probably like a month and a half.
Yeah,
to where it was very. I mean, you had to wear masks in some places and things like that. But the fact with everything locked down and everything like that, maybe a month and a half.
Yeah, I agree. But with the control thing, then they said, you know what, we're gonna close down schools. And then they started saying we might close down schools the following year and mask mandates. And now it's 500 something days since 15 days to slow the spread. It's 500 and I think 16, 17 days, something like that, since that was the big move in America. And I am scared because I think that it's only going to be used and pushed more. And I hope there's going to be some pushback, and I think there already is. People are starting to wake up. But they are trying to push it. You look at New York City, right? They have this new thing called the Excelsior Pass. Something I learned about literally today. It's an app. I think it's an app on your phone or a website that you can use on your phone that shows your vaccine status, last time you've been tested, all your different statuses, what vaccine you got, etc. When you got the vaccine. If you've had your booster shots, because now they're starting to talk about we might need booster shots in the future, and that's going to be its own thing. And this Excelsior Pass is now being implemented in New York City because Mayor Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, has now stated we're going to put into effect that you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to bars, you can't go to sporting events, you can't go to concerts, you can't go to public events in public parks and stuff like that are funded by taxpayers. They will literally not allow it in the city of New York unless you have evidence of your vaccine or this Excelsior Pass that is essentially evidence that you have a vaccine. That's getting scary. And again, call us conspiracy theorists, but the way I look at it is this control thing that they are pushing, and the line how it's been pushed farther and farther and farther. And I hate to make this comparison because it disenfranchises those that really did go through this back in the 1940s and the 1930s in Germany, Weimar Germany, before it was Nazi Germany. Do you think that those people were stupid? Do you think that they just all of a sudden rolled over? No, it happened over 6, 7, 8 years of a line getting pushed and blame being pushed on a certain group of people and ostracizing a group of people and making them the enemy. They were the enemy. And it was all these minority groups and the Jews and LGBT and the blacks that lived in all these in Germany and Austria. And all of a sudden, it's almost like we see it now as it was just this flip of a switch. No, it was gradual. Those people weren't dumb. They were pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and told by their government and told by the state-run media, which is essentially pretty darn close to what we have. that these people were evil, and these are the reasons you guys are struggling, or these are the reasons why you're poor, or these are the reasons why you're not happy, etc. And it got pushed and pushed and pushed. And what did they start using? They started using these papers. They started having to be out on the street with these papers that prove that you're on the good side or you're on the bad side, and we don't mess with you. And then what they do to the people who had the bad side? Then all of a sudden they had to start wearing stars and the Torah or whatever the Muslim symbol is. And then all of a sudden, then there was that. And again, I'm not making the comparison and saying that this is anywhere near that. But I'm saying
this is how it starts.
If we don't wake up, it could be.
Yeah.
Not saying that is even in a plan of anyone, but it could be. Because then what they do after they started labeling everyone and kicking them out and controlling their lives because they had that Star of David on their shoulder, they boarded them on trains and took them to get executed. And it was just like that fast. And it's scary to make that comparison, but you think that they didn't start somewhere. It didn't happen overnight. It happened through a decade. And so that's how I feel. And that's what I feel is scary, is that I'm not saying it's likely or even going to happen, something like that effect. But the people there were not dumb. They were brainwashed into thinking that way over a long period of time. And then these evil atrocities ended up happening.
Yeah. That's intense. How much do you know about that Excelsior Pass stuff?
Literally just, I was listening to another podcast and some guest was talking about it.
So how do you confirm it's your vaccination stuff?
I'm not sure.
You have to have your ID with you and get ID?
Well, I assume you have. Yeah. It'd be like if you're going to a concert, you have the app that shows this is my vaccine pass. I think it's really just a simplified way instead of carrying around that card that everyone gets.
Yeah.
So everyone, especially our vaccinated listeners, you probably got that big white card at every vaccination point. And those are clunky. You don't want to carry that around your wallet or whatever. And so this is just an easy way of you can easily pull it up, scan it, has your info in it. I think it has a barcode system like a concert ticket or like a...
Well, my point is, what if I downloaded the app and used somebody else's information so that I was vaccinated? Surely you'd have to have some form of identification too to prove...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It has to be tied with that. You have to use both.
So what you're telling me...
Or you have... I don't know if this is true, but I assume you probably have your identification on your phone, like a picture ID on the app.
So you're telling me that I have to show my ID to get into a Yankees game, but not to vote. That's where we're at.
In New York City, that is
well, the
that
Yankees
is literally
game is in New York.
I know. That's what I'm saying. In New York City, that is what is being pushed. Yes.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me. So the fact that you have to, goes against HIPAA laws entirely, that you have to prove that to get into an event.
Correct.
And you have to show your medical information. And B, just the fact that it comes from the government. So here's something I would say. If you are the New York Yankees, and you're like, it's Steinbrenner's agenda, I want you to be vaccinated to get into my stadium. And
the
you
coach
say,
or his GM?
It's the owner.
Owner, okay.
You have to be vaccinated to get into my stadium. And he puts a mandate on his stadium that you have to show a vaccination card. I'm okay with that.
I agree.
He owns a stadium. If you don't want to get vaccinated, don't go to his stadium. He earned it. He has the right to tell you whether you can come in or come out based on anything. It doesn't have to be vaccination. And at that point, you are willingly giving up your medical rights to show your vaccination point because you're going into some place that he offered you. But the fact that it comes from the government that they have to do this is what really drives me nuts. The government is not a private company. They should not be forcing anyone to do specific things medically or in any regard of that nature. And so I know that yours is a very extreme example of where it could go, and that was kind of your point, and I know that that's not really your thought process. So, that's what we're going towards.
Yeah.
But I think that the point stands of you got to stand up somewhere because I would even say if you're thinking, now I don't know this from like a factual standpoint, but I think if you told Hitler when he started, like, hey, eventually you're going to get all of these people to completely agree with you and you're going to be able to take them to concentration camps and kill them, he would have been like, my plan's going to, like, he's like, that wasn't even my plan. I just wanted power. And then he just kept getting more power and he's like, I can continue to do this. And I can. So even if the people in power aren't planning to really go drastic routes, it might end up that way when they're like, we really got away with that?
What we can do.
We really got away with that. What can we do next? And we just take more steps and more steps. And
that's what's been happening.
I don't think it would be in a violent sense these days. I don't think it would be to the point of we want to kill people. But it'd be to the sense of we want to take their stuff. We want to be in charge of them and their stuff. And we see a lot of pushes towards socialism, which is a whole nother topic.
Oh my god,
a whole nother thing. But like that's where I think that this would go if they took it to the power of, okay, we want to keep pushing our power and push to the point where we're a socialist government where we're in control. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that, I just want to preface it by not saying that like they're evil to the point that they want to kill people. I think they're evil to the point that they will keep pushing for as much power as they feel like they can get.
Yeah, they just want to control you to whatever degree they can.
Yeah.
And again, pushing that towards socialism, which is extremely likely. I mean, it is. I mean, that's
it's out
the truth.
there. It's not. That's not a conspiracy theory anymore.
It's unreal how much has changed in 5 years on how they used to really keep that in the dark. Democratic socialism. We still want privatization of business and the medical field and et cetera. And then now they're literally out in the open, just like, no, we want socialism. Like, we're happy with it. Favorite quote from any communist is Vladimir Lenin said in 19 some odd, the only goal of socialism is communism. And what does that show about control and pushing the line? Yeah, we'll hit socialism in whoever knows how many years if we keep just bowing down and letting these big entities control us.
Yeah.
And then eventually that's where communism comes from. Every socialist country that had a big revolution, every single one of them had the same steps. First, it was disarm your populace. Every single one of them. The Soviets did it. The Germans did it. The Turks did it.
The Cubans.
The Cubans did it. The Chinese did it. All of them across the board. They all did that. First, they had disarmed him. Then they took control over the media and made sure that it was state-run and that they could control what was being said through all the outlets. That sounds familiar. Then they moved on and on and on and down the line, and eventually it became, okay, well, now they're not just socialists. They have so much control that it's considered a communist regime or even a fascist that's gone in two different ways. You look at Germany, that ended up being fascist. Both evil, and both literally are the exact reason for millions of deaths, of starvation, of war, of famine, of genocide. I'm not trying to say that that's exactly like you said where we're going, but the more that we let the line get pushed, the more that there's going to be a bigger spread between those who have the power and want more and those who have absolutely no power and are disenfranchised and have zero. It's going to be a bigger gap, and it's going to end up really backfiring on the smaller guy, the smaller business, the main social class. We will have no power, no freedoms left.
Yeah, I think one thing, we'll kind of get off that train and go a different direction a little bit. I think that one thing that we want to talk about too with importance of the vaccine is how it does. Everyone's like, we talk about how some vaccines are required, and I want to kind of touch on why this isn't the same as those. This is, to me personally, for people my age, this is very much closer to a flu vaccine than any of the other vaccines as far as how it should be regulated, how it should be administered, and things of that nature. When you look at things like, so all of the stuff that we require is done before you're 18 years old legally, because you have to have it before you go to college generally.
Yeah.
So you have Hep B, which is a chronic disease which lasts your entire life in some cases. In 40% of cases where it's past perinatal, from the mother to the child, it's chronic. And that results in 40% of those people dying from chronic liver failure throughout the course of their lifetime. Obviously way more serious than COVID. Then you have DTaP. Diphtheria death percentage is 10%. Tetanus and pertussis are not super, they're not super bad.
You can lose limbs, though, from tetanus and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's serious.
It's serious, but I wouldn't put it on the level of 10% death rate. Because it's not. No. So, but anyways, diphtheria is included in that one. So that is why, there's a 10% death rate with one of the things associated with that. Then you have poliovirus, which causes paralysis in many cases and a higher death rate than COVID. I want to say that one was... It's really hard to get a polio death rate because we've completely taken it out here.
Eradicated it, yeah.
I won't even go to the polio death rate because it's not fair, because like in the 1960s, the death rate for everything was way higher than everything it is now. So obviously medicine's not as good. Measles, mumps, and rubella, not a high death rate, but the symptoms are so much worse compared to what you get. Obviously, swelling of certain body parts, testicles, things like that with mumps.
And it's spread. Those are really...
And those are way more contagious than COVID.
Yeah.
Then you have chickenpox vaccine, way more contagious than COVID. I think that would be your best argument to where we already require... Because chickenpox is generally not serious, just like COVID.
Yeah.
But it also affects the child population a lot more strongly, which I think is why it's allowed, because COVID doesn't affect kids. So by the time that it really affects you, you're 50, 60 years old.
Yeah. And chickenpox also turns, if you get it as a kid, you're like a big chunk more likely to have shingles, because shingles is a variant of the chickenpox vaccine.
And if you get chickenpox as an adult, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And then you have the tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis, the Tdap that you take later. Already, obviously, same thing. We talked about that one. And then meningococcal, which is one of like the worst diseases, one of the most deadly diseases that you get a vaccine for. So,
are most of these you're vaccinated at as an infant?
So, all of them except for meningococcal and, well, the Tdap, the second time is when you're 11 to 12.
Okay.
But all the rest of them, you're done between birth and 18 months, and then you get your second dose of chickenpox, your second dose of measles at 4 to 6, and you get your fourth dose of polio at 4 to 6, and your fifth dose of the DTaP at 4 to 6. Meningococcal you don't get from 11 to 12, and then you get your booster right before you go to school, college generally.
Okay.
So all of these are done before you're 18, and about 80% of them are done before you're 4 to 6 years old.
Yeah, and again, they're all either way more deadly or way more contagious or have way worse symptoms than COVID as a whole. And again, I want to touch on something you said of like, okay, yeah, for us it shouldn't be required. I think for everyone it should not be required. Because when you get to the age groups that are really affected, and we're not saying that they're not. I mean, since day one, COVID was known, okay, it's going to affect the elderly way more, which it does. But so does the flu. That's part of getting old. Sicknesses are way more dangerous. My grandparents, when flu season rolls around, they are way more, they're hermits because they're very elderly, and it makes sense. That is what you should be doing if you're an at-risk individual.
I agree. My point wasn't that you should be required at any point. My point is that at least at some point, elderly-wise, it makes sense to require it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, like, when I'm 24, like, it literally blows my mind that people my age get the vaccine. Like, literally, like, I cannot understand that. Because I know that in 5 years, I'm going to have to go get another one. Like, that's how COVID's going to work. It's going to be like a flu vaccine. Because now it's not a live virus vaccine. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not backing the research. But Corona is a live virus. And it's changing. And we've obviously already seen that with the Delta variant. And there's going to be an Echo variant and a...
it's going to go to Omega. It's going to go to Zeta. It's going to go to whatever.
Hey, don't talk about Zetas yet. We haven't broken that out.
Regardless.
But, yeah. So I know that when I'm 40, when I'm 50, I'm going to have to go get another vaccine. And at that point, I'll probably be very open to the idea because at that point, it'll make more sense for me to get the vaccine than to get the virus.
And it'll be proven.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, even at this point, if I was 50 years old, I'd probably get the vaccine.
Yeah, fair.
Just because there are more health risks to not getting it than there are to getting it right now.
Yeah, I agree. And again, you know, the premise of you getting the vaccine makes you this better person. This, you know, you're so much more caring. I disagree because whether I get the vaccine or not, it's only going to affect me. There's now evidence coming out that this new Delta variant, people who are vaccinated, they're getting less symptoms, but they're having the same viral loads of vaccine within their bloodstream that people who didn't get the vaccine are having, and they are spreading it at similar numbers. And now there's new evidence coming out, and again, this is only early preliminary studies that are coming out. Nothing is proven by the CDC or anything like that.
Well, we're taking a vaccine based on preliminary studies, so it seems fair.
Yeah, exactly. That now there's this, it's literally called Delta Plus, and mark my words, it's coming. We are going to have another winter where we're going to have to lock down. If people don't stand up, I'm not saying we won't, but it's coming. And I'm telling you, now there's this Delta Plus that they're starting to speculate was caused by a mutation through people who had the vaccine. And it is only through people who had the vaccine. That's crazy. That's, if you really think about the science behind it, makes sense though. Because a vaccine going into you is the vaccine of the original virus. Viruses mutate. It literally evolves to become a deadlier virus. That's what a virus is. So of course it's going to be different than the dead virus that was put in you as a vaccine, because it's going to mutate, because it knows, okay, now we can't be this because these bodies are beating it and the antibodies know how to fight it off. So we're going to mutate a little bit. We're going to change our structure to become deadly again. It's going to continue to happen just like the flu every single year.
Yeah, and I really don't understand people's thought process when they thought it was going to go away, like, because COVID is similar to a flu, and it's how it works.
Yep.
And the flu, we've known about the flu. We've had a flu vaccine since, I want to say, the 60s. Don't quote me on that. It's been a long freaking time. You can quote me on that. And the flu's still around. We didn't get rid of it. But people also, we weren't bitches about it. Like, the flu is a disease where you get sick, and sometimes people get really sick, and sometimes people die. Because that is how life works. I am so tired of people, like, and there's a lot of, this is, I'll go on a tangent here.
Go ahead.
But people that, like, blame Trump for the deaths of COVID. It's like, no, people fucking die. That is exactly how the world works. And this disease is how it happened here. And when you really look at it, it was basically comorbid diseases, which is all people that had COVID and pneumonia, COVID and the flu, and COVID and something else, or COVID and were super obese, or COVID and were super elderly. It wasn't people that were, healthy 35-year-old dies of COVID. There were cases where that did randomly happen.
Yes.
That is not the majority. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that we live terrified, absolutely terrified, and there are people our age that wouldn't, like, go outside and wouldn't go do stuff.
They're scared.
Yeah, terrified of a disease that kills 0.0003% of our population if you get it. If you get it. That's saying that you get it right away. The chance of you getting it are probably 50-50. So that puts you at 0.0006% chance of dying. Wake the fuck up. Like, stop being a sheep. Go out there, live your life, and don't live it scared. Mm-hmm. Whatever happens to you, I don't know. Like, I'm a very religious person. Other people are not. But whatever, however you believe, I don't think that there's anybody really that believes there's not some sort of plan set for their life that was predetermined in some way, shape, or form. And so for you to sit there and be terrified of something and have it jeopardize your lifestyle, your life choices, makes no sense to me. If God wants to take me out because of a disease called COVID, that's how he's going to choose to do it. If he wants to choose to, I'm going to be in a car accident tomorrow and I'm not going to wake up the next day, that's how he's going to choose to do it. And I don't want my choices to be affected. Now, that doesn't mean that I go out and drive 150 miles an hour and be an idiot, because it doesn't matter. God's going to take me when he takes me. No. But for things that it really mathematically doesn't alter your chances of dying, live your fucking life.
I agree.
Just be you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I
dropped way too many F-bombs in there, but I got really heated.
Trust me, man, I'm on the same boat. But I'll say it, it's pathetic to see those, like, people like our age who are healthy, that are just, they won't even go outside still. And like I said, it's 500 some odd days since 15 days to slow the spread. Like, I'll just ask you a question. What do you think will be a turning point where they might, those people that, that we've all run into that are just like mask up every time they walk outside their house, and they only order in, and they never go out into public if they don't have to, and they're still either working at home because they don't want to go into work, etc. They have the vaccine, they're getting the booster, whatever. When do you think that say no path changes, the media continues to push this, that all these institutions of ours, that the powers to be, keep pushing it? Do you think that anyone, or the vast majority of people that are these sheep, that are so terrified of this really minor threat for especially people our age, will wake up?
Nah, man, sheep are sheep. Dogs are dogs. Sheep are going to keep being sheep for as long as the dogs keep telling them to be sheeps. And the media are the dogs right now. They keep barking at them, telling them, stay inside, wear your mask, do this, do that. And until they grow up and really mature for themselves, they're going to be the same person. And they're going to be scared. And they're going to be terrified.
I agree. We have the same opinion on that. It's sad. It really is pathetic.
What I would tell those people, in all irony intended, trust the science. The science says you're literally not going to die.
Literally, I swear. I mean, it's.
You have a higher. I'm not going to say something that I don't know for 100% chance. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here because I almost guarantee that's true. You have a higher chance of getting in your car and dying from a car accident than you do of dying of COVID.
Oh, that's statistic 100%.
Yeah, I don't know why I questioned that was going to be true. I don't want to say something that sounds really stupid, but then I thought about it, I'm like, obviously that's a higher chance.
Yeah, for certain age groups, you are more likely to die on your way to get the vaccine than you are after you contract the virus. It's literally statistical fact. So I don't know. Let's wrap up here. I think people have heard us rant long enough, but where do you think? And I'll tell you what my opinion. But where do you think we are going as a society? Not only U.S., but you can touch on both U.S. and the world. U.S. kind of really leads the charge in a lot of ways in the way society moves. Where do you think we are going from here? Do you think things will change?
I really think that world-wise, people are starting to wake up. You see it in Australia, you see it in places other than the U.S. because their governments have been so constrictive, even compared to the U.S., who I feel like I'm feeling like strangled, and other governments have been like, whoo, even tighter than that. And so, like, Australia was one of the biggest ones where you saw that huge riot of people just like, we're done with this. Like, this is not okay.
Peaceful protest. Remember, it's peaceful protest.
Yeah.
Even though they're burning down buildings and stuff. Even though I don't think they really were. They were just in the streets. But
I think that there were some parts that got unpeaceful. Because
that was France, I think, is what you're thinking.
France? Okay. But, so anyways, I do think that people are starting to wake up in some capacity. And I think that the United States will be that country that if our government really tries to bottleneck stuff again, I think that the Midwest will not have any freaking part of it. A lot of states here will just be like, no. There will be states like Florida that will be like, absolutely not. Texas will be like, go screw yourself, government.
Yeah, and the Bible Belt.
And like, I think that there will be a lot of push from government to try to force it. And like, what my thinking is like, imagine being a cop in Kirksville, Missouri. We'll just use here for an example.
Okay.
And the government's like, hey, we're going to have you guys go door to door to force people to take the vaccine. You know what that cop's going to say? He's going to say no. And they're going to say, do it or you're fired. And he's going to say, I quit.
Yeah.
Because the chances are literally 50-50 that you get shot for trying to force somebody to do it. If you like try to arrest somebody for literally making them take a vaccine, there's going to be people where, rightfully so, they're like, that's a freedom of mine. I'm not going in with you. I don't think a lot of people would actually shoot them. But I do think that there would be a ton of fights. There would be a ton of, I'm not doing that, and you're not going to take me unless you're taking me in cuffs.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? Arrest probably half the city of Kirksville, because I would imagine about half of them are Republican. Probably more than half are vaccinated, but maybe a quarter, where it's like, okay, like, we're going to take you all into our jail that probably has 20 cells. I just don't know what your end game is as a government if you try to force this mask mandate. I do think that a lot of public, huge companies will go to the point of you have to be vaccinated to get in here. And I think that a large population of people will get vaccinated for that reason, where it's just like, okay, I don't want to deal with not being able to go into McDonald's because I'm not vaccinated. Yeah. And that would probably be something that in like a few months where I'd be like, this is so inconvenient. I'm just going to go take the stupid vaccine and get over it. But I'm holding that out as long as I can to where it's like, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I
understand. I'm on the same page, and touching on the fact of really overreach that is in my opinion, overreach from day one was too far, and that's my own personal opinion. I'm very libertarian, and I have a lot of conservative beliefs, mostly libertarian, of just like, don't touch my freedoms. Literally, don't touch my freedoms. Let me do what I want. Potheads, go smoke pot. Rednecks, go own their guns, and we can live in harmony, right? But you look at countries like France that are literally imposing fines and arrests for people who are not getting vaccinated. I agree. I really think that things will turn around. I think they already are turning around, and we will be the culture setter. The U.S., as it always is and always has been, we will be the kind of determining factor in the way the world decides to go. And I think that it's in control of every individual to, whether you're vaccinated or not, really sit down and think if you really think it should be controlled and should be forced upon people. Really think about what you are saying if you are saying it should be forced upon people. Something that is not FDA approved, something that is still in, the only reason it was released was for emergency protocol. That's absolutely, in my opinion, evil and fascist. That is what fascist regimes have done, is forced people against their will to do things they're not comfortable with, and it pushes the line farther and farther. So I think people will wake up, and I think it really depends on the people that, people like us who don't want to get vaccinated, to stick it to the man, and we aren't vaccinated. Everyone knows our opinions. Everyone knows. It'll be the people that are vaccinated and who support vaccines, like us, to stand up and say, yeah, I'm vaccinated, but this is not okay. I think that's a pretty good spot to stop. I think we had a lot of segues that we will continue other conversations about. I mean, every single topic we talked about is its own, rabbit hole we can go down.
Yeah. I definitely want to reiterate what Phil kind of briefly touched on at the beginning. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to, if you're someone that wants to come in and have an actual conversation with us, we'll do that, and we'll let you come on the show and we'll let you voice your opinions. As we state plenty of times here, we definitely fully support freedom of speech. And if you have a different opinion, that does not matter to us. We still want your opinion to be heard. Mm-hmm. So come at us with any of those things. But I mean this maybe more than any other time. If you made it to the end, we apologize.